There we go. I knew it hadn't told us that yet. Okay, got it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Activism 101 with Jessica Craven. I'm Candace Davis. I'm one of the co-leaders of Indivisible Evanston. Indivisible Evanston, Indivisible Chicago Alliance, and Indivisible Illinois are very pleased to host this webinar, Activism 101, by the amazing Jessica Craven, the author of the daily Substack newsletter, Chop Wood, Carry Water. Every day, Jessica inspires us with positive news and constructive actions we can take to make a difference. She's our antidote to despair, and we're so pleased to hear from her tonight. Some days she's the only thing I can read. I just want you to know that, Jessica. Before we get started, I just want to explain a little bit about how this evening will work. We're in a Zoom webinar format, so you'll only be able to see the panelists. There's a chat for your comments, but there's also a Q&A box for questions for the presenter. So please put any questions for Jessica in that box. We're recording the meeting, and we'll be sending the link to the recording out after the meeting along with the slides for anyone who wants them. Actually, we'll send it to all the attendees, so you'll get a follow-up email. After Jessica makes her presentation, we'll have a Q&A session, and Kitty Connect, Indivisible Evanston's leadership team, is going to be asking Jessica questions. And then following that Q&A session, we'll hear very briefly from Linda Callis of Indivisible Illinois, and I guess Bill Menager of Indivisible Chicago will give us an update, and we'll hear from Indivisible Evanston about our activities. So without further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce Jessica Craven. She's an activist, organizer, climate hawk. She's the author, as most of you probably know, of Chop Wood, Carry Water, a daily action Substack newsletter that's been published 5 days a week since November of 2016. I did not realize you've been doing it that long, Jessica. That's just amazing. The Chop Wood, Carry Water newsletter is a daily inspirational newsletter that points out the positive things that are happening and provides guidance on political actions you can take to make a difference. Jessica's a political TikTok creator and a mom to a queer kid. She's an elected member of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party and a member of Indivisible. She's knocked doors, phone banked, fundraised, texted, and postcarded for hundreds of progressive candidates. She's amazing. She's also a correspondent for the Courier News. She's made it her mission to get regular people more engaged with politics on both a federal and a local level, and she hopes she can inspire you to do the same. She does for us every day. Take it away, Jessica.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you. Okay, I don't know if you heard me the first time I said thank you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Really nice to be here. All right, well, I'm going to go right into it. So let me just go ahead and share my screen. And I was just saying, this is a workshop that I have just sort of updated for the current, can you guys all see my Activism one slide there? Yep. 101 slide? Okay. Candace, just do me a favor and let me know if at any point my slides seem to stop advancing, since Google Slides does all kinds of crazy things.
Will do.
Okay. Yeah, this is a workshop that I've been doing since 2020. I was telling Candace and the Indivisible Evanston team before we started that I did my first version of this workshop about 55 times in the months leading up to the 2020 election. It's just free, and I'll just do it for anybody who can put together a group. I think at the time I was doing it for groups of like 6 or more. So sometimes I would do it for 6 people and sometimes I would do it for 50 people. But obviously at that point, a lot of people were really not sure how to do activism at all. And so I was trying to sort of help them understand how to do some things that would help us win that election. And since then, I've done this workshop for the 2022 elections. And I can't remember if I did it last year, but I expect probably we'll be doing it a lot. And I know a lot of you are seasoned activists, so I've tried to sort of adapt it to be a little bit more, some remedial and some more kind of, I don't want to say advanced, but some of the stuff that we've learned along the way. So just basically setting the stage, can you have my slides advanced to why act? Anyone?
Yes, you're good.
Okay. All right, great, thanks. So, why are we here? Why did people come to this workshop today? Well, the country is a mess. We thought that it was going to get better when Trump was voted out. And in fact, it seems to have really all escalated in a lot of ways that are real scary. And we know that Donald Trump and his people are ready to sort of put a whole authoritarian playbook into practice if he wins, that it will be Christian nationalist and that we will have a lot of our rights stripped away. And it's something that we absolutely can't let happen. Sorry you can't see my face. I'm not used to that with these this Zoom webinar. Anyway, the other reason that we act, though, is because democracy, unlike an autocracy, requires constant tending, right? It is not something that we can really check out of the same way. If you've got a king or a queen, they're kind of in charge and we just show up and do what they say. In democracy, it's different. And when it's working well, we're all participating, right? Ideally. I mean, we maybe haven't had that ideal yet, but that's the ideal. The other reason that I take action, and the reason my newsletter is called Chop Wood, Carry Water, is because I have found that taking action is the thing that keeps me sane. It keeps me in the day. It helps me deal with anxiety. And I think that we can't underestimate just how frightening things are right now. And it's very easy to become overwhelmed or incapacitated by fear. And ever since Trump was elected, I have found that when I get out of my head and off of social media and out of my sort of worries and start doing something, no matter how small, I immediately calm down. I feel better. I feel stronger. And I'm able to take more action, and the cycle sort of continues. So the other reason we take action, at least I take action, is so that I don't lose my mind, right? So the Chop Wood, Carry Water name comes from a saying that my dad taught me when I was going through a terrible divorce. And I was asking him how he got through really hard times. And he said, sometimes you just have to chop wood, carry water, and get through the day you're in. And so that's why the newsletter is called what it is. So when you start to spiral out into anxiety, if you do, I will remind you that action is a way that we can chop wood and carry water and stay in the day. It's worked really well for me. But all of that aside, the most important thing about taking actions, and it's easy for us to forget this again when we get like flooded with fear, is that taking actions changes outcomes. And we have won a lot of things at this point, right? There was supposed to be a red wave. There wasn't. We elected Joe Biden in 2020. We absolutely destroyed it in November of 2023. And before that, we won in 2018. We won in special elections in Virginia in 2019. We've won all kinds of special elections and abortion referendums. We have won over and over again. And it is important for us to remember, and I encourage you to circle back constantly to the fact that we are winners. That's what we do. That since Donald Trump got elected, the Republican Party has been on a solid losing streak. And that is because of people like you and me taking action. Literally, we are the secret sauce. Press doesn't talk about us, but it doesn't mean it's not true. I also encourage people to remember just how much we've done in the last 3.5 years, right? Remember where we were in 2020? People are forgetting, but it's really important that we remember. Trump was planning a coup that we didn't even know was coming. We had no COVID vaccine. We were out of the Paris Agreement and the World Health Organization. The economy was spiraling. We didn't have a Senate majority. We were estranged from NATO. I mean, that list could go on and on and on and on, right? And just in the last 3 years, when we only had a majority in both, in the House and the Senate for some of that time, President Biden and Democrats have created 15 million new jobs. We've gotten out of Afghanistan. The climate progress that we have made under President Biden is unprecedented. Is it as much as we need or as much as I want? No. But President Biden is the best climate president we have had, or any world leader in history, right? Our unemployment rate has been at a historic low for months and months. We have passed major pieces of legislation, right? Does anyone remember what legislation Donald Trump passed when he was president? I think it was just tax cuts for rich people, right? We have had the American Rescue Plan. We have had the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, the PACT Act, honoring our PACT Act, which is medical care for veterans, and the CHIPS and Science Act. I don't even have the first gun legislation in 30 years that was passed under President Biden, and that has decreased gun violence in this country by 12%. No one ever talks about that. And many, many other things as well. We have seen $136 billion in student loans get canceled. the most lower court judicial nominees confirmed ever, the most diverse cabinet, a Supreme Court justice, and literally so many more things that I could spend this entire webinar talking about what we've done. And I encourage you to think about these things and dwell on them, because it is so important that we remember not just how scary another Trump presidency would be, but how visionary and incredible another 4 years of Biden and Democrats in Congress would be. So let's really hold on to that, right? But of course, the attacks are coming over and over. We know that, and November's election is critical. I hardly need to say it, right? So what I'm going to ask you all to do in this workshop is to frame your approach to the following 9 months, right? Which are going to be very, very stressful. Probably some of the more stressful months we have lived through. So first, I'm going to remind you to always bring it back to the day. Always bring it back to just chopping wood and carrying water. What can I do today? I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen in 6 months. What can I do today? But I'm also going to ask you to think about this fight in terms of bringing your drop. Now, of course, you are wondering what I am talking about, okay? So imagine that you are one drop of water, really very inconsequential, right? You have no real impact as a drop of water. But when we start to imagine lots of drops of waters and billions and trillions of drops of water showing up in the same place at the same time, and then suddenly we are carving stone. We are changing the surface of the planet. We are making seismic change, right? So that is what I'm going to encourage you to think of your activism as. You don't have to save the world alone. Because when we feel like, oh my God, I have to figure this all out, then the alternative to that, when we can't do that, of course, is just to give up. And instead, I want to ask everyone to just take the humble attitude of, I can't fix it all, but I do need to bring my drop. I'm going to bring my one little drop of water to this and trust that the other drops will show up and that we will carve stone together. So obviously, we're going to set our goals a little bit, but we are going to need you to bring your drop because we have a lot of stuff to do, right? We have to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who have been a phenomenally effective team, as we were reminded in the State of the Union address the other night. We need to retake the House majority. I am determined that we will also hold our Senate majority. I know that the naysayers are saying that we won't, but they also told us that we would not in 2020. Right? There was no way we were going to win both of those Georgia runoff races. It was impossible, we were told. And then look what happened. So we also want to win a whole bunch of state legislatures. And I'm sure you, again, by now we're all pretty educated about why that's so important. But in case you don't know, you will know more by the time this workshop is over. And then, of course, we're going to focus on governor's races and a bunch of down ballot races. And it's all doable. It's all doable if we do our jobs. So the ways to engage that we're going to talk about briefly today are going to be our postcarding and letter writing. We're going to talk just real briefly about this stuff: relational organizing, voter registration and protection, giving strategically, which is so very, very important, phone banking, and then canvassing. And again, I'm going to touch on each of these just super briefly. A lot of you are super familiar with all of them. And then there may be some of you who haven't done any of them. So I'm going to kind of try to find the middle road and just skim past them to remind us all of best practices, what we know works, and why these things are important. I have omitted text banking from this presentation because it was just too long, but I do have a resource document I'm going to give you at the end, and I do have a few places in it that are doing texting. That's also a wonderful way to engage. I just didn't have space for it. Postcarding, I'm just going to touch on really, really briefly because at this point, most people are very familiar with postcarding. I show this picture just to remind people that the beauty of the postcarding movement is not just that we are covering postage costs for campaigns. It is the handwritten message. It is the color. It is the care. It is the sort of novelty of getting something in the mail that is from obviously a real human being who's taken a little bit of time to send you something lovely. I know that not everybody, feels that they need to make their cards lovely. I recommend putting a little extra color in. I think it makes it pop a little bit more. So obviously postcarding, we provide the postcards and the colored pens and the nice handwriting, and different campaigns will give us a script and addresses, and special instructions, and sometimes even the postcards. I have a document that you will get access to in the resource document that I will keep up to date this year with all the postcarding and letter writing campaigns I know of. 3 that I really like are Center for Common Ground, Postcards to Swing States, and Environmental Voter Project. And just briefly, the reason I like these 3 groups, it's not that there aren't lots of other great ones. The reason I choose these 3 is because there's been a lot of randomized controlled studies at this point, right? We know certain things about the effectiveness of postcards, and mail in general. And one of the things we know is that timing matters, right? We want to be very, very strategic about when we send, because there's something that's called decay that happens when a political message arrives too early and then is sort of superseded by other messages. So we want to avoid decay, and that's why places like Postcards to Swing States and Environmental Voter Project will give you very precise dates on which to mail. Vote Forward does as well. And there's a really solid reason for that. But also, we know that certain messages are more effective than others. And these 3 campaigns all represent groups that really focus on science-based messaging. Postcards to Swing States and the Environmental Voter Project both use what we call social pressure scripts. And these are scripts that a lot of people really don't like when they first see them because they feel a little pushy. They'll say things like, who you vote for is a secret, but whether or not you vote is public knowledge. Please be a voter in the 2024 elections, or something like that. And sometimes I will give out postcards like this and people will say, Jessica, can I rewrite that message? I really don't like that message. And I say, no, thank you, because that message is not designed to make friends. It's designed to get people out to the polls. And there has been many, many, many randomized controlled trials about social pressure scripts. So Vote Forward does a variety on social pressure. There's lots of campaigns that use it because they know it's effective. So if you see any postcarding or letter writing campaign that's doing something that sounds anything like that, please keep up your good voting record. Those are ones that I would recommend doing. So Postcards to Swing States and Environmental Voter Project both do that. And what I love about Center for Common Ground, as you see in this previous slide, is that they include a lot of information that voters need. Websites, phone numbers for registrars, and those also are known to be very effective. When voters are getting information they need to help them vote, they will use those. And Center for Common Ground does a lot of postcarding to Black and brown voters that are the victims of voter suppression in southern states. So I also think there's just really good arguments for working with that campaign. But there are a ton, and postcarding is great, and it's a great way to bring your drop. Especially if you really don't want to talk to people face to face. And then, of course, there's letter writing, Vote Forward being one of the big letter writing campaigns, and they have just launched their Big Send campaign for the year. They've got, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of addresses, and they also have been honing their messages to figure out which ones are most effective. And I always recommend looking for organizations that are using science and data behind their work. And Vote Forward is one of them. So they're terrific. But you can also write letters with the Civic Center to register voters, young voters. That is one of my letters. You can see my handwriting is exemplary. Just kidding. But that campaign, we were sending little register to vote stickers to kids, and that was really nice. But they've got all kinds of campaigns on their website. And also Working America. People forget to check them out, but they are doing very effective letter writing. So I always encourage going and checking them out too. And Working America is an organization that, again, uses a lot of randomized controlled trials and knows that these letters are effective in turning out working class voters. So those are letter writing. Now, relational organizing, I don't have too much up on this yet, but basically, it's becoming more and more a big part of what Democrats are doing because we are getting more and more information about how impactful it is for friends and family to talk to friends and family about voting. Basically, somebody reaching out to you and saying, hey, there's a really important election coming up. Are you going to vote? Is going to be 50 times more impactful than a stranger texting you or calling you. So relational organizing is any form of friends and family reaching out to friends and family. And the one thing I will urge you all to do right away is to download the Reach app, which is what the DNC is going to use this year for relational organizing. So they will be running relational organizing campaigns where you will be able to download all your contacts and see exactly who is registered as a Democrat in what states, and you will be able to easily text them and, give them voting information. You can do voter registration through this app. And they also have a whole section where they've got content for you to amplify. It's not yet providing the amount of content I would like, but they're getting there and they're ramping it up. So the link to the Reach app is in my document that I'll give you. And in general, anytime you hear any organization talking about relational organizing or friend banking, or Indivisible is going to be launching a program called Neighbor to Neighbor, where you'll be getting voting information for just your immediate neighbors and going out and talking to them about voting. These are all ways of bringing the conversation super local and super immediate because it's more effective that way. So that, keep an eye out for opportunities for relational organizing. Another way that you can bring your drop this year is voter registration and voter protection, actually two separate things, but both very, very important and less heralded than, maybe phone banking. Voter registration sort of speaks for itself, but I always like to cite this statistic from Field Team 6 that 60% of unregistered voters have never been asked to register. A lot of those unregistered voters who have never been asked are young people. Because remember, there's no formal program in our country for registering young people to vote, or at least not one that is national. Some states do it, many don't. And particularly for people who graduate high school and don't go on to college, many of them are never asked to register. So registering voters, volunteering for organizations that register voters, particularly organizations registering young people. And I really recommend the Civic Center. In fact, right now they are about to launch their cap gown and cap gown. It's basically to register high school students during graduation. They need volunteers to do that, to do workshops, to bring voter registration drives to high schools. So that's another incredible way you can help, because remember, 4 million young people age into being able to vote every year, and many, probably something like 30% of them are registered. So we want to get that number up. That's really important for us. When We All Vote is an amazing organization, the Civic Center, who I've mentioned, Field Team 6, who are incredibly effective at registering voters, and Vote Riders also is terrific, especially helping people figure out which ID they need. And they also do letter writing from time to time, and I will include those campaigns when they come up in my document. And then, of course, if you're someone who is really interested in sort of like working behind the curtain, voter protection, which involves everything from curing ballots after an election, contacting vote by mail voters whose ballot was rejected and letting them know that they need to cure it, to recruiting poll workers, to doing really deep dives into, what the office hours for county elections offices in different counties. These are all things that voter protection volunteers do. And there's a great organization called VoPro Pros that this is all they do. They work mostly off of their Slack channel. And if you're interested in getting connected with them, I'm going to give you my email address and you can email me, because they're quite stealth. So you can go look at their web page, but if you want to be put in touch with them, you need to go through a friend of a friend. But they're phenomenal. And if you're someone who's like, I just want to be at home in my slippers and like do data work, VoPro Pros could be the perfect place for you. And this is a very important way. They believe that we won those elections in Georgia based on their ballot curing after the fact. And they very well could be right. Okay, now we're going to get to my favorite section in the workshop, which is about giving strategically. And if you guys are bored, just stand up and shake yourselves, or, but this part is really fun. I'm a little worried that I forgot to turn on my sound sharing thing. So I may have to get out of screen share for a second and then go right back in. But let's see what happens. I'm going to show a video in a second. But first of all, let's talk about giving money, because a lot of people, like, this is mostly what they want to do, right? They're like, I'm not going to talk to voters. I'm too busy. I run a hedge fund, whatever. But I'll give money. So I'm just gonna, I don't know, the DNC keeps texting me, so I'm gonna give money there. So I'm gonna suggest that you not do that. Nothing against the DNC. But we do know that the way people have traditionally given political money is not working that well. There's a big trust issue. No one knows who to give to anymore. What we're seeing is that A lot of money is getting spent kind of in the wrong places. Consultants, especially if you're giving to PACs, a lot of that money is going just to the people running the PAC, TV ads. And then when election day is over, when we just give money to campaigns, they take all of the data and everything they've learned in that district and they just leave. They leave nothing behind. And meanwhile, the best voter engagement groups working in states go underfunded. And I really want to see that change. So again, just a couple examples of how big money tends to kind of go, even with the best of intentions, to sometimes the wrong places. This is a recent example from my own state where people have been pouring money into the Adam Schiff, Katie Porter, mostly into Adam Schiff and Katie Porter's races, but so much money that what started to happen is that the congressional seats that we really need to flip in California, bear in mind that Schiff and Porter, like, it's going to be won by a Democrat regardless, right? But I don't know, $25-30 million sunk into that race. Meanwhile, these down ballot congressional seats that we're having a really hard time flipping are underfunded because of this, right? So that's not strategic giving. Remember Mitch McConnell and Amy McGrath? Remember that race? People hated Mitch McConnell, and so they hate gave. I understand hate giving. I think I hate gave to Amy McGrath. Lots of us did. So she raised $120 million. Meanwhile, people who were political strategists were like, she's not going to win. She's not going to win. But, we were fired up and we gave her $120 million. That money all just basically, we could have just set it on fire, sadly. Mitch McConnell not only beat her, he trounced her completely. Marcus Flowers, who ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene in a district that is so red, he had no chance. He raised $15 million. Try to remember these figures for a second. Amy McGrath, $120 million. Jamie Harrison, remember that race? Against Lindsey Graham, $130 million. Adam Schiff himself raised $35 million. Again, in a solid blue seat. Now, keeping those numbers in mind, some of my favorite organizations to give money to. Run for Something's entire goal in 2023 was $17.8 million, right? Again, so just a little bit more than Marcus Flowers raised, and that's for like 150 races. State Project, all of the money they raised for 2023, where they basically just killed it and helped us win so many seats, $60 million. Again, that's half of what Amy McGrath raised for their entire budget. Movement Voter Project, their budget for 2024, and they're a really important organization funding all the grassroots organizations out there doing the work in swing states. They need $200 million. Again, so, less than Amy McGrath and Jamie Harrison put together to fund their entire operation for this year. So we need to make sure that the kinds of money that we used to put into the Amy McGraths and the Jamie Harrisons, we are now putting into groups like this. Not only these groups, please know there are other great groups, but these are groups doing such strategic, effective work that if they were fully funded, I would feel imminently better about the upcoming election. Imminently was not the right word to use there, but it's the word I chose. So we're going to go with it. Okay, so give smart best practices. Mostly, the first one is to give strategically, not emotionally. We are so emotional in our giving, right? I like to hate give or revenge give. And when I hate somebody, I just give to his opponent, even when their opponent has no chance. We want to try not to do that. We want to try to support grassroots organizations because after 8 years doing this, you guys, the one thing I know is that grassroots organizations who are staying put in communities, building trust, building databases, and getting to know their communities are going to be millions of times more effective at turning out voters than strangers dropping in for one campaign. We want to give now. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is that we be giving and raising money now, not in September. That we really consider funding state legislative races or even further down ballot because the trickle up effect is real, but the trickle down effect, not always so reliable. And then again, just to be wary of PACs. If you get a text message, my mom will say, Jessica, I just got a text message from Nancy Pelosi. And she's saying we're really desperate. And so I gave $25. Was that good to do? So I'm going to say, Mom, no, generally not. Like that wasn't Nancy Pelosi. And just if someone texts you from a random PAC, don't give them money. Like let's be more strategic. Let's give that money where we know where it's going and we can actually see their plans and understand exactly how they plan to spend it and utilize it to the most effect. That's why I love Run for Something, who are funding young people running for office in state level races and down. So they run people running for county commissioner, for election commissioner, for school board. They have a 50 state school board program this year. Young people running for office, you guys, excite young voters. Old people running for office do not. So when we get young people running in offices, we get young people voting. And I cannot emphasize enough the amazing work Young Run for Something is doing. They are putting phenomenal candidates into the pipeline who are going on to become our phenomenal Congress members and, running for higher office later. But they're tremendous. And they endorse a lot of people of color, women, LGBTQIA people. In November of this past year, their school board win rate was 72%. They are the reason we trounced Moms for Liberty in so many places. So that is an amazing place to put your money. Movement Voter Project, who invests in basically grassroots organizations working in swing states. So these are organizations that have been in these places for decades. They know their communities. They know how to talk to the people who live in them. They often speak Spanish, or they are members of the AAPI community or the Muslim American community, and they've got relationships where people will listen to them and not just look at them like people who are trying to just get their vote. They're incredible. And Movement Voter Project looks at who's doing the most strategic work, looks at the districts that need to be funded the most, and then funds those grassroots organizations. And again, they never can raise as much money as they need. I'd love to see that change. And then, of course, the States Project, who are funding state legislative races. We know that state legislative races are going to be key to securing the 2024 presidential election, right? And also, we know from the victories we've already had that when we flip legislatures, like in Michigan and Minnesota, which largely are because of States Project, we start to see these trifectas do incredible, beautiful things. And we start to see other states like Wisconsin get excited about those things and fight for fair maps. And now we got a fair map in Wisconsin, and we're going to get to contest those seats. That is all, I think, outgrowths of the work that the States Project is doing. So now I'm going to try to show this movie. I think the sound is not going to work. So if it doesn't, just let me know and I'll quickly close out a sharing.
I was going to say, why don't you stop screen sharing and then click optimize for video and share again.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
better if you optimize for video.
Optimize for video clip. I did not know. Okay, let's do it again. Now I got to go back to my, sorry guys, where'd it go? Where are you? Here she is. Okay.
There's an option.
Okay, can you see her now?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Let me know if you cannot hear.
Okay.
Once again, Trump will be the Republican presidential nominee. And a lot of people are asking, where do we go from here? To answer that, we need to look at state legislatures, because building power in states gives us two crucial protections. First, states can prevent right-wing extremists from attempting to steal the presidency. They tried this in 2020 when Trump called right-wing state lawmakers who held majorities in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Arizona into the Oval Office to change electoral college votes. And second, if Trump does win, states will still have the power to determine whether millions of Americans have abortion access, good schools, affordable healthcare, and jobs that can support their families. That's why our work at the States Project is more important than ever. We've been fighting back against right-wing extremists in state legislatures for years, identifying and supporting candidates in critical states who are running in key districts. We know the combination of seats we need to win majorities that will use their power to protect our democracy. We know the stakes, and we know how to win, but we can't do it alone. Join us at the States Project. Not where the glamour is, just where the power is.
Ooh, I love that. Gives me chills. Not where the glamour is, just where the power is. So yeah, the States Project is amazing. You can form your own giving circle and raise money for one of their strategic states. Or you can give money at my newsletter. I had my readers vote, and we have formed a giving circle that is raising money for Pennsylvania and Arizona. You can give to that one. I'm trying to raise $100,000 this year, so that's my crazy goal. But also Sister District does phenomenal work, very similar work, although they do both volunteering and fundraising for state level races. Run for Something Movement Voter Project. And then there's a group called Blue. Well, they have every state blue, but they have Blue Ohio, Blue Tennessee, Blue Missouri. And they, again, are running candidates at state levels and supporting them even when they can't necessarily win, because they are trying to build power. And those are the kinds of movements we want to fund. And if you just need some more guidance, instead of just, giving to whatever comes up on your cell phone or in your email inbox, there are all these amazing groups now that are mostly volunteer run. And one of them, Flip the Vote, I believe there is one paid staffer, but they vet where the best places are to give your money. And sometimes they'll put together a congressional slate, or they'll do one Senate candidate who's particularly vulnerable, or they'll do grassroots organizations, but they work full time to figure out where your money is going to be strategic. And if you join any of these organizations, they will invite you to meet and greets with the candidates, and it's great. And you don't have to do it alone. And then the final thing I always recommend is subscribing to Blue Tent, which basically just recommends to left-leaning donors where their money can be the most strategically given. So in general, just like I talked about with postcarding and with everything else we do, to follow the data to where we actually can do the most good with our time and with our money. So that is my Giving Smart section. And then the last thing I'll say, just because I think I'm really fond of this picture, is if you are someone who doesn't have a lot of money, you can do a little fundraiser and then give that money that you raise to a candidate that you care about. It's a great community building exercise. This is my friend's kid back in 2020 raising money for Black Lives Matter. And this is my kid in 2019, 2020, raising money with a lemonade stand for 4 female candidates. You get to post it on social media. It's good sort of, it's like a gift in kind to the campaign because they get to retweet your cute picture. And it's just a really lovely way to raise money, even if you don't have a lot. So now in my last couple of seconds, I'm going to touch very briefly on the final 2 ways that we can help win races. One of them is phone banking, which I always preface with, it's not as bad as you think, because people really get very stressed out at the idea of phone banking. But look, you can do it on your bed with your cat on your lap. So that part is great. And also, we need phone bankers. So even if it's a little outside of your comfort zone, I want to encourage you to at least try it a few times. As we get closer to the election, or even now, God knows we need you now. And you might find you actually like it and are going to be able to commit to doing it once a week or once a month. It's a very important part of electoral work because everything we've talked about so far, we're not actually talking to voters back and forth. Phone banking, we're talking to voters. We are having a conversation. So it is more effective than letter writing or postcarding. We are also cleaning lists for campaigns. So when we call, we're calling through the voter file. And a lot of what we're doing is just saying, oh, hey, that person moved. That person, this number is disconnected. That's the wrong number. So that as we get closer to election day, the campaign has what we call a clean list. They know where their voters are. They know who their voters are, and they can go and do their get out the vote work. And finally, I do find that getting out of my comfort zone is really good for me. And even though I never look forward to a phone bank, I always feel really good. Actually, I kind of do, but I'm weird. I do feel really good when I'm done. It's really cool talking to voters across country. It's very eye-opening. And at this point, the lists are so well cleaned after years of all of us doing this work that you're going to be calling likely Democrats or Democrats. It's very unusual now that I will get an accidental Republican on the phone. Campaigns don't want to waste your time sending you to talk to people who are not going to vote our way. So we're trying to talk to persuadable people or people who are already persuaded. So you can do voter registration phone banking if you don't want to do regular talking to voters phone banking. You can do voter ID. That's a little bit more of like, I'm calling voters to see who is supporting my candidate. That's maybe your like graduate level phone banking. Right before the election, you can do GOTV. That's when we're getting out voters that we have already identified. We're making sure they know their polling place, that they, what method they're going to be using. That is super fun. And then, of course, there's that voter protection I talked about earlier that you can do with organizations like VoProPros, where you're doing ballot cure phone calls. So lots of ways to be helpful. And a couple of things that I always tell people when I am training for a phone bank is talk with a smile, even if you don't feel like smiling, because can you hear it in my voice? I'm smiling right now. I'm not really smiling, but I'm smiling and you can hear it. I like to acknowledge that I'm barging in on people and let them know that I'm a volunteer and tell them it's going to be a super quick conversation. And I also like to ad lib the script. Obviously not the parts that are important, but I make it mine. So my first sentence will always sound something like, "Oh, hi, is Tom there, please? Oh, this is Tom. Oh, hi, Tom. I am so sorry to bug you. My name is Jessica. I am a volunteer, and I am calling with Ruben Gallego, who is running for Senate in Arizona. Just wanted to make sure you know about the important election coming up." And then I've just kind of broken the ice. I've let them know it's going to be a quick call and that I'm a volunteer. And usually people don't hang up on me. So that's about all I'm going to say about phone banking, except that they will train you. And I do hope you'll try it at least once. And then my final slides are just about canvassing. And all I want to say about knocking on doors is that this is the gold standard of getting out the vote. If we want to win races, we need people knocking doors. I know it's scary. I know it is maybe unappealing, but even if you can think in your head, okay, maybe I'll do one shift, I cannot tell you what a difference it will make and also how incredibly fun it is. Okay, there's me canvassing in like, I don't know, that was maybe 2018. I don't remember who for. I think that was Orange County. We might have been canvassing for Mike Levin. But anyway, it's just the most effective way we have of turning out voters. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Talking to a voter at the door is incredibly effective. So that's why we do it, right? Before you panic about canvassing, I'm not going to go into a training here, but I'm going to tell you a couple things about it that are wrong, preconceived notions that people often have. And by the way, this is a picture of my mom and my sister who were canvassing also in 2018, who had never canvassed before. And they really didn't want to do it. And I'm just telling you that they did it and they survived. And actually, Tom Malinowski, you can see the little sticker there, got elected. So you're going to go out with a partner. No canvassing organization will ever, ever, ever send you out alone unless you want to go alone. I do actually like to go alone sometimes, so I do, but most of the time they will always partner you up if you ask. You are not knocking on random doors. You are knocking on Democrats' doors. You are going to be using an app. They will tell you exactly which doors to knock on, and you will only knock on those doors. And if you go up to a door and you're like, I don't know, something feels wrong, you skip it. It's not a big deal. People are always nicer at the door than they are on the phone. I have literally never been yelled at the door, ever, ever. And I've canvassed for, I think it's safe to say, hundreds of hours. You'll see a lot of people's dogs and cats and pretty gardens and little waterfalls and all kinds of beautiful things. But the most important thing to remember is, remember in 2020, how we thought we were going to like pick up a bunch of state legislatures and flip a bunch more Senate seats and maybe win some governor seats, and we didn't? Most people now think that that's because Republicans canvassed in 2020 and we pulled all of our canvassing operations because of COVID. It really makes a difference. Republicans will be canvassing like crazy this November, so we need to also. So the moral of this story, as I wrap this up, is just think about the different ways that we can help. We can get on a bus with our friends and go canvass. We're just going to do something. We can have a bake sale and raise some money to give to a great candidate or organization that we care about. We can write some postcards. We can write some vote forward letters. Those are mine. You don't have to draw pictures on them. I just did that. We can sit and, text bank or do some kind of, friend banking on our balcony in Florida. We can phone bank. Look how happy she is. She's really happy phone banking. We can go and knock on some doors for a great candidate that we want to see get elected. But the really important thing to remember as we go into this kind of scary election cycle is that if we all do a few small things, we are going to carve out a win in November. And that, there's a couple ways you can find me if you need to. I'll leave that up there for 1 second. That's just my social media and my email. And with that, I will stop sharing and take a couple of questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica. That was terrific information. And now Kitty is going to ask some of these questions.
Okay, great.
Now can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I kind of got a couple questions before we even started the Q&A, and I thought I would start at the very beginning and ask you how you got into political activism. I know you said you started in November 2016, but are you one of those who comes from a political family, or was it what happened in November 2016?
Yeah, no, I don't come from a political family. My family are all artists and musicians and a filmmaker and various people like that. No, but I have always been really interested. We're an interested family, and I always volunteered during presidential elections. But yeah, I would say it was largely Trump, and a feeling of like, I need to do something or I'm going to go crazy. And also, I had a young, my kid was 5 when Trump was elected, and a desperate feeling of needing to protect MJ. And that still is a large part of my fuel, is just protecting my kid. So that's what got me started, and then it just so happened that I took to it. I
Yeah,
quit
you
my
sure
job in
did.
2018. I was working in sales, and I quit my job in 2018 and just thought, well, I'm just going to go for it and see if I can somehow find a way to make a living. And here we are. So,
All right. Fascinating. The other thing that I really admire about your writing is um, keeping keeping that positive attitude. And so I wonder what how do you keep going during the periods when the news is pretty bad?
well, yeah, I mean, I have realized that a great part of how we will keep going is morale. Like, I read a lot of history. I like history a lot. I read a lot of all kinds of history, but you read enough military history or about great generals or Alexander the Great or Cyrus or whoever, and you realize there's kind of a common thread of like, we keep our people uplifted, and we fight with them. And so I did not come in this to become any kind of leader. I just came in this to be an activist. But I've really come to see that a large part of what my newsletter is important for, it's not even so much, I mean, the actions are important, but it's the little morale boost. Because it's easy to fall into despair. And so part of what I do is try to help people stay uplifted. And how we do that is by staying in the day. Because again, like when we start future tripping, it gets real bad real fast. And quite frankly, we're terrible at predicting what's going to happen in the future. So, yeah, so that, and also I guess I have a lot of experience with fear and I've got a lot of tools for it. I've spent a lot of my life sort of figuring out how to navigate difficulties. And so all of that sort of became very useful at a time like this. So yeah, I'm a cheerleader, and I'm a fellow fighter. And but I also have a lot of tools that I've used in my own life to sort of handle my own anxiety. And so things like taking things a day at a time, really, I know that from long experience is a very vital tool. And so I just share stuff that's worked for me, really.
That's great. We certainly appreciate it. Let's see. There's been some conversation about phone banking. I think I'm going to wait and sort of put some specific questions about phone banking all together a little later. But Kate Kavanaugh had a good question. Wonder if you're hearing anything about there being a national system that connects activist organizers in the secure states to partner with swing state leaders to support them on the ground, specifically in the weeks before the election.
Well, I don't know of any organization doing that. I mean, Sister District, that's sort of what they do, is that that's exactly what they do, really, except I don't know that it's so much for security, but they partner blue state people with races happening in swing states, and they're terrific at it. So yeah, that's the only organization that I know, but there is this new Substack, and if anybody remembers the name, they can drop it in the chat. That's kind of trying to put all the activists in the same place. I'll put the name of the newsletter in my in the resource document, but it just started, and that way everybody can kind of be reading the same stuff and getting the same tips, and it's pretty cool.
Okay. Let's see. Another question from Betsy. I'll just read it. Many people are angry over the U.S. military support for Israel, with more than 30,000 people in Gaza dead, and so many being starved. I am definitely voting for Biden because of the great good he's done in so many areas, and because with Biden, we keep the democracy we already have, so we can keep working for better. But I struggle with messaging because I can't just give a happy, happy picture to people who are enraged and distraught. Any suggestions for messaging?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's obviously the biggest challenge we all face. It is very hard. And I had to start a whole separate newsletter just for Israel Gaza stuff because it was contentious in my main newsletter. So I just moved it out, and I understand, like, it's real tricky. And I think that what I will just share what I do. I am not like an authority on what we should do, but what I do is listen and say, I really understand. I really understand that you feel that way. And I hear you. And it is really hard and it is really upsetting. And sometimes that's really all we need to do. Because this is going to have to be a conversation. Like, the election isn't tomorrow, thank God. And I'm really trying to trust that like things are going to continue to unfold, and that what we want to do right now is just not say to people like, oh, don't have those feelings, but just like, yeah, that's super legitimate. I completely understand. And this is a really awful, awful situation. And I'm frustrated with some of the choices Biden is making too. And if it feels like there's room for the greater conversation, I'm terrified of what would happen to our Muslim American community under Trump, like legitimately terrified. Um, and, I do TikToks about this from time to time, talking about third-party voters and just reminding people that what we're trying to do right now is save democracy so that we can vote for who we want in the future. So we don't have to be excited about Joe Biden. We can hate Joe Biden. But if we ever want to have the chance, if we want a democracy in 2025, we're going to have to make a choice to vote for him. And that's, we can say it, and then they might tell us, I've got people in my own family who feel this way right now, and I'm not going to argue with them about it now. I'm going to wait, and maybe when things are closer, they'll come around. And if they haven't, maybe we will find some other ways to approach it then. But for right now, I think the most important thing is to listen, to acknowledge the pain. And maybe that's got to be enough for this moment. That's sort of how I feel.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
May or Mai, forgive me if I butchered your name, says she's curious if you know of chop wood, carry water action groups. So the idea that it can get overwhelming to act alone in your home, but I've thought of gathering a group once a week in hopes it would encourage or motivate people to act. Do you know of any models for this kind of organizing?
I mean, I don't know anyone that's doing that. I know a lot of groups that get together once a week to do, I don't know if you're talking about like calling your rep work or like electoral work. I know lots and lots of groups that get together, like Civic Sundays here in Los Angeles, Markers for Democracy, which anybody can join. Markers for Democracy is fantastic, and everything they do is on Zoom. And you're writing postcards together, and they've got amazing. I mean, Markers for Democracy is far and away, I don't know, they're incredible. They get great speakers. So if you're looking for like community, you could either start your own thing. And in fact, if I can find it, one of my subscribers wrote a whole thing about how she started a postcarding group in her own town. And I believe she lived in like Alabama. And she said it's really become this wonderful thing they do at her house every week. Kathy, you just sent that to me. I'm not sure if you meant to. But I posted my email in the chat if somebody needs it. So I can try to find that and put that in the document as well. But it's a wonderful thing to do. Part of the way we stay sane now is building community. The thing that is so lucky for us that the other side doesn't have is this beautiful common effort that we're in, that we are really operating out of a place of love and concern and empathy for everyone in the country. And that when we get together to make phone calls or write postcards, we are meeting some of the best people in the country, like really. And so we get to do that. And that's a wonderful opportunity that we have, either with people in our immediate neighborhood or with people on Zoom. And that is something the other side, I cannot imagine they have, because they're so operating out of a place of fear. Maybe they do, but I can only say for our side, when I go to these events, I'm blown away by the people who are there, and I feel honored to be a part of it.
Great. Here's another question from the Q&A. I live in Red County in West Central Illinois. I do postcards and calls to swing states, but what is the most effective way I can keep our democracy alive locally? How does one do any good in a deeply red area?
I think it's worth reading that David Pepper book. He's got a new book out called, oh God, what is it called? I think it's called Saving Democracy, or How to Save Democracy, where he talks about this kind of thing. By the way, just going to interject that the group I was talking about that meets on Zoom is called Markers for Democracy, and I just put their web link in the chat. I think if you're, I mean, you can, I think there's a couple of different things I would do if I were in that situation. I might reach out and start trying to find, even in the rightest district, there are some Democrats. They're out there. They may be hiding. When I canvassed in Orange County, every time I knocked on a door for Katie Porter, someone would say, "Oh my God, are there other Democrats in this neighborhood? You have other names on that list?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, there's 6 other people on your block." They'd be like, "What?" So we're out there. So I would either maybe try to find a way to get involved with your local Dem club if there is one. But you can also take your activism outside of your district and, just try to help the neighboring district. I'm not going to really do much canvassing in my neighborhood because we're quite blue, but I will go up to the 27th district, which is where we're trying to oust Mike Garcia, and do canvassing there. So sometimes we just travel to a neighboring district, or we do phone banking. There's so many things we can do from home, raise money. The world is your oyster, really, But yeah, that David Pepper book it's good. It's real good. And it would give you a lot of ideas.
Okay.
Is that
Thanks.
helpful?
Yep. Well, I hope so. I'm not the person. I think so. Thank you, Jessica. I'm curious about how progressive fundraising is going. I was hearing some very bleak things in the fall about it being down. I'm hoping that the threat of Trump is bringing it back up. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, I think fundraising is fine. I mean, I think that there is a tendency I hear those stories, and then when I go and I'm actually at some event, it's always like, I mean, I think it's fine. I think that the grassroots groups are the ones that struggle with fundraising. I think the last I read, every single Democratic Senate candidate is outraising their opponents by like 3-1. So the Senate, again, like, I don't give to Senate campaigns unless it's like a maybe Colin Allred, or there's a really interesting Senate race in Nebraska. Dan Osborne, I might give there. But there's the Senate races are so well funded. They're so well funded. So I think that fundraising wise, we're going to be fine. I'm not really worried about that. What I'm worried about is the money going to the wrong places. There will be plenty of money. I just don't want it going to super PACs that are keeping literally 85% of that money for the people running the PACs. So,
Yeah. Good advice. Good advice. One specific question about donating. What are your thoughts on Emily's List?
I don't like them. Sorry, I don't not, okay, I'm a little bit biased against them at the moment because they just endorsed, in New Jersey, they endorsed, what's his name, the governor's wife over Andy Kim. And Andy Kim is just a phenomenal candidate. I have also heard from women who have run for office that they really present so many roadblocks, and also they don't give early money, which is their whole thing. Early money is like yeast, but they actually are very, they don't give early money. I think they're fine, but again, they to me are like a PAC that everybody gives money to, and I don't actually think that let's just say, because I don't want to tell people what to do, I would not give them money. That is not where I would give money. I would take all the money that I was giving to Emily's List and give it to the 3 organizations I talked about, or a couple of other ones. There's an organization called Galvanize that is working specifically on messaging to white women who voted for Trump in 2016. And they, again, very, very scientific and data backed, and they are doing tremendous work. So if we want to give something sort of women oriented, I would do Galvanize instead. Amazing group, incredible.
Great, good advice. Thank you. Let's see. I want we at Indivisible Evanston have recently become aware of the Blue Voter Guide, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think it is great in a lot of ways. I think that for the average person who is a low propensity voter, who's kind of like, oh, I don't really vote because I don't know how to do that, it's incredibly helpful to have something that will build your ballot for you, and that you can go through and take your time and literally fill out all your things and go in with your printed form. My one issue with it is that endorsements don't always tell us the whole story. I am a member of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. We endorse, and like sometimes I hate our endorsements. So it's just because, say, like the Orange County Democrats say that I should vote for someone doesn't necessarily mean, like, you know, some institutions are great, some are less great. So I think that it is important to maybe do a bit more endorsing, but I think it can tell you a lot. I'm an environmental voter, so if I go and see that like 8 environmental organizations are endorsing one candidate and the other one has none, that'll be the candidate I'll choose. Like that, in that case, it's really helpful. I like it. I think it's a great tool.
Great. So there was quite a bit of discussion in the chat about phone banking, and if I can sort of maybe combine the questions and wishes, I think some people are looking for I don't want to say lower tech solution, but something more like making normal phone calls and not using a hub dialer.
Oh yeah.
Are
Then
there
phone
folks
oh,
who
sorry.
specialize in that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. The sister district, much to my annoyance, because I cannot stand hand dialing, they only do hand dialing.
Oh.
So you just do. And then also Center for Common Ground, who do those postcards to Black and brown voters. Usually that is also hand dialing. And there's a couple of other groups, Grassroots Democrats HQ, which I run a lot of phone banks for them. They always offer a hand dialing option. I would say most campaigns will offer that, but I will make a note in the document. In fact, and here's a link to the Activism 101 document. It's just got links to a lot of things I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's just tricky. Endorsements are tricky. They get, you know, politics. But yeah, I will make a point of putting some phone banks in that I know are manual dial.
Great, thank you.
Great question. Yep, for sure.
To each his own, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Totally.
Yeah.
I just like auto dialers because you talk to a lot more people. But if you know, I love to just have the conversations.
Yeah, and I kind of like ballot curing because that's on the phone, but it's much more individualized and personal. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Ballot curing is incredible. That is
Yeah.
really a good thing.
Very, very necessary. Okay. Well, would any of the other panelists like to give me a question? Or ask Jessica another question, I mean.
Sorry, you guys, I just made this, this was a new document. It should now be accessible to anybody. And somebody had asked if I could give texting options. And again, they're all in the document. You'll see there's an opportunity. You can adopt a state. There's links to a document that will give you all your postcarding and letter writing campaigns. There is a document towards the bottom that has all of where I think are good places to give and links to those. And then for text banking, we've got Movement Labs. When We All Vote does some texting. Next Gen, ACLU, and DCCC all have texting that I've got in there. And this is a live document, so I will be updating it through the year.
And I do a lot of texting with Indivisitext.
Oh, Indivisitext.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well,
Well,
yeah, it's funded by National Indivisible.
I did not know that. Well, yeah, if you guys will send me information, I'll add it to the document. I'm
Okay.
in Indivisible National, but I didn't know they did regular texting. I thought they occasionally did that. That's very good to know.
As the election comes up, it'll be pretty regular.
Yeah. And Indivisible is going to put a really big emphasis on that neighbor to neighbor program as well, which is really great. I mean, you're literally just finding out who are the Democrats living right around you and going and knocking on their door and being like, hey, neighbor, you know, I live right over there and I just wanted to talk to you about the election. And have found it really effective, like really, really effective. So they're going to lean hard into that this year, which is exciting.
So Kitty,
versus
Linda, I had a question for Jessica. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think about the organization Leaders We Deserve that David Hogg just started?
They're just a PAC as far as I know, right?
I don't know. I thought they were helping to find people to run for office.
I don't know. As far as I understand, they're a PAC, so they're raising money for young people to run for office, which I think is great. But I would probably go for Run for Something over that, just because Run for Something is so incredibly good at what they do. Amanda Littman is like a visionary. I'm a huge admirer of hers. So I just really, I think they have cornered the market on recruiting young people, supporting them, helping them win, and just amplifying the great work they're doing. But you know, the David Hogg is great. I love him. I tend to avoid PACs. I don't know why. I like to see more data about what you're doing with my money, and the organizations I'm recommending have really, really clear data about where the money's going, what it's doing, how effective it is, and what their plans are next. And I like that personally. So
Thanks.
yeah, of course. Poll watching versus driving people to the polls. I mean, I would say poll watching is probably, it's harder to recruit poll observers than it is people to drive, because we've got organizations like what is it called? Ride share to the polls. Like if people need rides to the polls, that's usually easy to get-ish, whereas getting poll watchers can be quite difficult. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, I think one last question in the Q&A here.
Okay.
Lori says, I am a Democratic precinct delegate and a member of a local Democratic club,
Nice.
but both very important, and often frustrated by the lack of support and coordination between the grassroots volunteers and our state Democratic Party. I don't know if that's common or only an issue in our state.
Are you in California? No. What state are you in? What state is she in? Are you Illinois?
She.
Oh, well, it's okay.
Can you type it, Lori?
I mean, the truth of the matter is, yes, that can be a huge problem. It's a huge problem in my state. It's why sounds like Michigan. Well, Michigan's got a pretty good party chair now. No, I thought she was good, but it is the same in a lot of states. Ben Wickler has done a tremendous job closing that gap, and Anderson
Absolutely.
Clayton in North Carolina is doing a phenomenal job. But that's really the exception. I thought that is it Lavora Barnes, the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party? I thought she was good, but it's really hard. So I think that grassroots, all of the activists I know at this point have just sort of gone, you know what, we're just going to do what we do. We will show up for like DNC phone banks and stuff like that, but most of these groups are just kind of doing their own thing. But they're coordinating with each other. So Grassroots Democrats is a great organization that coordinates with the DNC, and then, you know, sometimes grassroots groups will jump in on that. So I see some coordination happening. I will say, and this is the last thing I'll say on that, in the recent race that we just saw with Tom Suozzi, his campaign brilliantly grabbed onto grassroots volunteers. They had Markers for Democracy doing a Sundays for Suozzi event every Sunday. They used us, they roped us in, they got us all phone banking and postcarding. And I'll tell you, I was on a Suozzi phone bank, and one of the people I talked to in that district said, do you know, I have received so many handwritten postcards. It's wonderful, but they should probably write somebody else. Because I said, how many have you gotten? She said, oh, I think I've gotten 6. Well, some people in that district got 11 handwritten postcards, and that's because the Suozzi campaign said, yeah, bring it all. You want a phone bank? We want you. And they coordinated with us, and that's why he had that incredible win, which he then acknowledged. And I'm really hoping that more and more Democratic candidates are hearing this message of like, you guys, there's this incredible resource out there, like use it. And hopefully they will. And I know Team Biden knows about us because I talked to Team Biden about us, and lots of other people do. So it's getting better. But state parties, some of them just suck. California, I've basically given up on, but I haven't. But I want to, because it's terrible. So I feel your pain. We just keep, you know, run for positions in the party, and we just keep slowly building something better. There you go.
Okay. Well, I think the Q&A time is just about up, but thank you a million times, Jessica, for your inspiration every day, and especially tonight. Of course, we want everyone to get your email newsletter and subscribe to your Substack blog, which has even more in it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to show a slide with that information one more time. And actually what we want to do is encourage people to both subscribe and become a paid subscriber if they can afford to, because it's important to continue supporting your work. Jessica, I want to put in one more pitch. When you do this presentation again, I would encourage you to include Blue Voter Guide, because I think bluevoterguide.org is providing information for a lot of people who don't have information. We know, I mean, we can fight with the endorsements, right? Because we know enough to know whether or not we believe an endorsement. So many people have no information about any of those candidates. And
Yeah.
so any information is helpful. And
I think that is a phenomenal idea. I will add it to the presentation. It's a really good idea because you're right. It's an obstacle to voting. And when we take that obstacle away,
Yeah.
it will get people out.
Well, thank you so much. That's just phenomenal information that you shared. I think we all enjoyed it. Thank you so much for doing this. And I'm now going to take this portion to talk. Our sponsors of our organizations have a few words. Our sponsoring organizations have a few words to say. So I am going to share my slides.
I'm going to go, you guys. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Go to my LACDP meeting tonight. Okay, bye guys.
All right, go for it. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're not going to take too long to do this, but I just want to once again ask everybody to subscribe. If you don't subscribe, upgrade to a paid if you can afford to. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bill. Is it Menjabir, Bill? I really apologize. I think I'm butchering your name, to talk about what Indivisible Chicago is doing right now.
No worries, Candace. We're used to that. It's Mengabir, actually.
Menjabir, okay.
Yeah, and I'm here pinch hitting for Kathy Tholen, who's the chair of Indivisible Chicago Alliance, but is detained at another event right now. So she asked if I could just say a couple of words. I am the co-chair of Indivisible Chicago's 2024 Elections Committee. My fellow co-chair, Sarah Lincoln, is also on this call tonight with us. Basically, I can just say it very briefly what it is that we are up to. For the folks that are from outside Chicago, we here in Chicago consider ourselves to be ideally positioned to have a meaningful impact on the election because our two neighboring states, Michigan and Wisconsin, represent 25 combined electoral votes. They are both considered to be amongst the most competitive states in the country. There are 77 electoral votes up for grabs in the competitive state, so almost a third of them come from our two neighbors. So what do? We go there. We go there, we knock doors, we go there, we phone bank, we text, we write postcards. We're working on our schedule right now. Right now we have 24 canvas trips scheduled into those states. As the election season ramps up, we have canvassing training programs that are going to be rolled out, phone bank training, text bank training for volunteers. So if you are close by, come join us and jump in the cars with us when we go up to Kenosha and Milwaukee, when we go over into Michigan, into St. Joseph and Benton Harbor. And these are our familiar stomping grounds. We go there every election. We knock doors, we talk to voters, and we will be doing it again. If you're interested in joining up with us, you can go to indivisiblechicago.com to our website. I put a couple of links here where you can get specifically to our volunteer sign up links. If you are already part of Indivisible Chicago or one of the chapter groups and haven't already done so, hit the link that says existing volunteer and go in and just update your preferences. Where do you want to work? What activities do you want to be involved in? If you want to get your family and friends, have them click on the indivisiblechicago.com volunteer link and sign up and let us know what they would like to do. We already are active. We have had canvassing going on up in Kenosha already this year. We are helping out with phone banks with our friends from Statewide Indivisible Michigan and Field Team 6, registering voters in Michigan. We've got a phone bank scheduled with them next Monday and the following Monday, a text bank this coming Monday. So the links, if you want to sign up and join us for those, we would love to have you. And then we're also working with our friends in Wisconsin to register voters there. That's a link to a training session to go up to the Department of Motor Vehicle offices there, where our volunteers go up there and they register voters. So we are warmed up, ramping up, looking forward to this. And some of us just can't wait for this. This is going to be a great year.
Thanks, Bill. Very helpful. Linda, do you want to talk a little bit about indivisible? Let me see if I can do this. Illinois. Oh, my
There we
slide
go.
doesn't want
Okay, yeah.
There we go.
Okay, thanks. So for those that don't know what Indivisible Illinois is, we're kind of an umbrella group for all the indivisible groups within the state. It was founded pretty early on by just a couple people, but it's kind of changed now. We have an executive board now that was voted in a little less than a year ago. So the idea behind the group is to help indivisible groups within the state get to, know who's there, who's around, who we can collaborate with. And also to have some power when we're trying to push for something. So if power in numbers. So if we can represent the whole state when we're pushing for something in Springfield, it's really helpful. So one of the things, and we do have monthly meetings for leaders and then monthly informational meetings, which is really intended to educate people on topics that are going to be important maybe when you're phone banking or you're knocking on doors, give you a little bit more information on things that people care about. One of the things we're trying to do is make sure that we have actually made contact with all of the indivisible groups in Illinois. So if you have not yet had contact with us on this, and I think when they get the slides, Candace, they can just hit this form, right?
Right.
Okay, so you'll be able to, there's a form just to let us know that you want to be engaged with us on working on things and make sure we have you on the list. And then if you have any questions, there's also a link to our email, and our Facebook is also on there. So it's a little bit about us. We are going to be doing some training on voter registration. We just don't have dates yet. And that's it.
Great. Thanks, Linda. And if anybody is in Illinois looking for an indivisible group, you can reach out to Indivisible Illinois and they will tell you who your closest group is. So I think someone asked about that. And now I'm just going to finish up with a little bit about Indivisible Evanston and what we have going on. We have a couple of things coming up on April 9th at 7. We're going to have our member meeting, The Road to November. And Ben Wickler, head of Wisconsin Dem, is going to be with us. Wayne Liebman, the founder of Blue Voter Guide, will be with us. Reed McCollum of Postcards to Swing States, and Jana Kaplan of Swing Left. We'll talk about what the plans are to give a massive win in November. And I wanted to let you guys, everybody know that Indivisible Evanston will again work with the Progressive Turnout Postcards to Swing States. And it looks like we're going to be distributing about 300,000 postcards for mailing in October. So we're going to have several locations in the Evanston and Chicago North area where you can pick up free cards, names, and instructions. And you just have to write and stamp the cards and mail them on the target date, or we'll mail them for you. And we'll be hosting postcard parties as usual to get everybody together. We'll share more information at our April 9th meeting, and we'll post a sign up genius for card pickup. All of our veteran postcarders will be notified, and we'll be working with groups to get all those cards out there and done. The other thing you can do is, sorry, that moved too fast. Check out our weekly newsletter. We try to include as many actions as we can that you can take. And there's a link in these slides, which Linda mentioned I'll send out. And then I just have a slide with our contact information, our Facebook group, our website. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram, sign up for the weekly newsletter, or email us at indivisibleevanston.com. So I'm going to stop that share. I promise we will send all of the slides and the chat information. So if anyone wants any of those links, they'll be able to have it as soon as the recording is ready. Is there anything else anyone wants to add before we say goodnight to everybody? Great. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you for everything you do and are going to do. We just have to stay engaged, and Jessica's a great person to keep us going. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.